All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Thank you for attending this webinar on leveraging your asset data for maximum benefit. My name is Laurent Jenkins, Senior IT Asset Management Consultant for Configure Consulting. I have over 10 years experience in the IT consulting field, particularly in asset management, and it will be my pleasure conducting this presentation for you today and answering any questions you may have. First, let's start with a few ground rules. First and foremost, let's keep in mind that this webinar is being recorded. All lines have also been muted. Please do not put your phone on hold or answer another call, as any hold music that may play will be recorded along with this webinar. We don't want that. Questions can be posted in the question manager, and those will be addressed at the end of this presentation. All right, now that we have that out of the way, let's move on to reviewing our agenda. In this webinar, we will discuss specific components and benefits for leveraging existing IT asset management investments as it relates to HP Asset Manager modules, including the procurement, finance, portfolio, software asset management, and contracts modules. We'll also discuss the training options that Configure Consulting offers to leverage your existing investments in IT asset management. Throughout this webinar, I will cite examples and/or demonstrate how the implementation of said modules can increase your return on investment in ITAM tools and/or existing data. Finally, I will present a series of recommendations Configure Consulting is ready to implement for your company, including a quick start implementation, assessment and recommendation of your existing ITAM system, and various training courses we offer in key HP applications for IT asset management. First, a little discussion on leveraging existing information, human resources data. All of these are some of the systems asset management can and will integrate with. This is a necessary part of the journey towards maturity from a static to a proactive IT asset management system. The problem is many companies do not or fully take advantage of all the data sources to make their IT asset management system as effective as possible. Now, all that being said, you may be asking yourself a simple question, and that is, why? Why leverage what we already have? Good question. Every active ITA strives to attain the highest maturity level possible. Benefit of all the previous integrations we just mentioned can enable you to evolve your system or existing asset base from a basic one-off application type level of maturity, say something with no real capability beyond or managed maturity level, where you have actual IT asset management standards in place, up to the ultimate agile maturity level, where IT asset management actually supports the entire organization as a service and a source of continuous operations. And often companies get caught up in buying and implementing the next great thing, quote unquote, as opposed to using what they already have on hand to its fullest potential. Time and goes a long way to prove the value of IT. Now, One of the best ways to start showing value is in how you buy new equipment versus reusing. This leads us to the first HB Asset Management module, procurement. Did you know focusing on asset costs is tied up in your procurement process and procedures? Wouldn't it be HB Asset Management module can help you do just that by optimizing purchase costs with multi-vendor catalog management capabilities, sharing vendor references for the same saving for things like volume discounts. Associated with the contract, you can even measure vendor performance for specific metrics like time for delivery, return ratios, or SLA compliance. Further, validation and tracking with a workflow engine customized to match your company's process and procedures, or track the status of request orders and their related request and order lines throughout the procurement lifecycle. Even electronically track all the returns and invoices to your vendors that are all linked back to their original request and or orders that spawned them, all in one system. When associated with the financial management module, you can also support chargebacks to users and or departments for the procured assets, track total cost of ownership of your assets from day zero, and know what is due to be received days or weeks in advance for proper inventory control check-in. The procurement module is a logical starting point for that ultimate agile IT asset management system.
Hey, Laurent, this is Anu on the line here, and I've just got a quick question for you around procurement. Can you speak to some of the existing investments that feed into and can be leveraged by the procurement module? So specifically, what kinds of data sources are incorporated into this? And how much of that data has to be built out from scratch? Excellent
question. The majority of the data required to build on the procurement management module, 99% of it is already in place in most companies from medium to large size organizations. Things like your human resources data, which often includes department and cost code data. All of that information would be imported into the procurement management module to help support submission of requests and what cost centers or managers or supervisors that are attached to those requests, and then go and approve those orders, as an example. Another example is parts of your service desk or help desk. For example, if you already have standardized bundles represented in your help desk for things like requests or even service requests that you just simply need something done on your existing machine, a lot of those things can be connected to the procurement module to track all the internal work that goes against existing assets or maybe involved in procuring new assets. Yeah, excellent question. Okay. The procurement management module and some of those answers I just gave you to that question is a great segue into the financial management module. As IT budgets are under pressure, especially with the way the economy has been over the last 5 or 10 years, IT needs to evolve to acting more like a business. As a result of that demand, that pressure from being financially and fiscally responsible, IT needs to understand all of its operating costs and be able to demonstrate the value of its the services it provides to other parts of your organization. The financial management module can enable you to answer questions like how high-end workstations or servers are being utilized throughout your organization. what equipment is not being utilized more effectively, i.e. sitting in a stock room long after it's been paid for. How much the company has lost in missing or stolen equipment. Questions like that. In the graphic above, this is an example of a standard report out of Asset Manager. This one is titled Computer Models by Yearly TCO. In this example, what someone who's trying to be savvy in controlling their costs would do would drill down into what's really driving the great cost in the VMware EXS server computer models. What's the basis of that? Using the financial module, you can track that back to specific cost categories or cost types. Like, is most of that cost coming from hosting services, all the fees we pay to host our servers perhaps? Or even all the money we spend on purchasing licenses for the software that the machines are running or supporting through those servers. Those types of things, the financial management module can absolutely help you determine to control your costs. So once you know what's coming in from the procurement module, how much it costs, and what departments and users it's allocated for from the financial management module, you're in the best position you can be to begin real, in asset manager speak, portfolio management. Portfolio management is just, lack of a better word, a fancy way of saying inventory control. And in that, you can track what assets exist, where they are located, who is using them, how they're being utilized in conjunction with the procurement and financial module, as I just said. This module also helps the IT department reduce costs and increase agility through industry-leading end-to-end lifecycle asset tracking. Now, here's a key point. When spreadsheets and ad hoc approaches to tracking user workstations, laptops, phones, servers, things like that starts to break down, when you just have too much trouble trying to aggregate information and generate reports from various disparate systems, when all the scrutiny around how much money IT is actually spending to provide services, procure assets, or track everything, when the physical effort of tracking down missing assets just becomes too much. If you're suffering through those types of things, you need to consider a more robust approach to how you do asset management at your company. With the portfolio module, you can go beyond some of those rudimentary baseline inventory type mode of operation and track assets across their entire life cycle, from procurement to retirement, with current and accurate data. The portfolio management module is the linchpin in that sense of all the asset manager modules, because it enables IT managers to fulfill goods and service requests, reconcile physical and virtual assets against purchase orders, contracts, and other business information that is often distributed across your company. In conjunction with the contracts and software asset management modules, which we'll see in a moment, this portfolio module is the portal through which the value of IT asset management becomes the most apparent. In fact, later on, we will discuss in one of the many leveraging options Configure Consulting offers how it utilizes this portfolio management module.
Laurent, this is Anu again, and I've just got one question or a point that I wanted to mention. One of the things that I know you and I have spoken about in the past is that a lot of organizations have multiple discovery tools. So for example, HPDDMI and SCCM. Can you speak to how often you see clients using both tools versus just one or the other in feeding into the asset tracking? And also to how successful you've seen that be.
Great question. I'll start with the latter portion first. Not very successful, and the reason for that is because of the inefficiencies involved in trying to pull together data from 2 or more sources. I've seen customers or client environments where they had 3 or 4 different electronic inventory or discovery tools running at the same time. Now, they may have been implemented at different times, but little slices of the company uses it for their part of the network, for example, or this other portion of the network. Or the more common thing is, well, this is what we've been told is the best, so we decided to buy it and implement it anyway. Ultimately, when you have that kind of redundancy, it really is not as effective as some might think. The better scenario is to go with one tool that meets all your requirements for both hardware and software discovery. Excuse me. That way, when it comes around to integrating that data into your asset management system, you, to simplify it, only have one process to be concerned about, integrating the data with your asset management system and then going forth, keeping that data maintained and up to date, as opposed to having to do 2, 3, 4, 5 different process integrations, data integrations between your discovery tools and your IT asset management system. Yeah. Very good question. Right. So now that we've established how you can begin the process with procurement, how you can keep track of costs and know where things are distributed throughout your environment in terms of people, cost centers, departments with financial, and then how everything can be tracked in a life cycle perspective with the portfolio management module, you can branch off into 2 other areas that really drive home some return on investment benefits. And those 2 areas are contract management and software asset management. We're going to look at contract management first. I wanted to walk you through this one first because this is actually something that's trending and has been trending for a while as a critical point for IT managers. IT managers are always facing some type of audit and always pressures to deliver on their IT services at the lowest possible cost. We'll talk about software audits in a moment. What the contract management module allows you to do is it gives IT a place to keep all the contract information in one centralized spot, letting the contract administrator see all the active contracts and identifying what assets they cover and how to track the performance for the vendors linked to each of those contracts. Here's a simple 1-2 benefit example. First benefit, it can let you aggregate all your active contracts for a particular vendor. This will help you identify duplicate non-standard contracts for that vendor. Second, IT managers and or contract administrators will then be able to see the performance for all the contracts from that vendor. For example, is the vendor actually delivering on all their SLAs per the contract? Are there some specific contracts where the performance is not meeting particular expectations? Using the contracts management module, you can answer all those questions. You can see how the ebb and flow of working with a particular vendor for the assets related to that contract, if it's actually paying off and providing the real value and benefit that you need. Finally, managers and admins will be able to see whether the active contracts that are associated with those assets, if they are actually in use or not in use, going back to some of the benefits of the portfolio management module. Many companies are able to find savings in thousands, hundreds of dollars just by canceling active contracts for assets that end up are actually no longer in use. It's a good point to keep in mind. Next up, one of my favorite modules actually, is the software asset management module. As I said before, audits are a real thing. Software license compliance is certainly no exception to that. And when it comes to those type of compliance audit situations, you need to ask yourself if you're actually tracking all the software licenses that are in use in your company and your organization. Software licensing can be complex. I think we all know that. There are a multitude of various licensing schemes, and virtualization is making it easy to become non-compliant, unintentionally non-compliant, just because VMs, for example, are so easy to copy and replicate across a given environment. But knowing if you are compliant is only part of the story. You also have to ask yourself, is the software you own being used by the appropriate people, the authorized users? Also, are you tracking all software purchases and ensuring that you're not overspending on your licenses? A very common problem in many organizations I see that try to do their own ad hoc software asset management program or actually implement asset managers SAM module. Most companies overspend on software to ensure they are compliant, and honestly, it does not have to be that way. Many companies struggle with things like multiple contracts for the same software because of departmental off-policy purchases or merger and acquisition activities. Those are things that can all be mitigated and managed. The industry figures estimates that an average company buys 15% more software than it actually needs to. Given that almost 50% of IT budgets are now spent on software, that means you can realize 5% or even higher budget savings by implementing an effective software asset management program. And the SAM module, an asset manager, helps you do just that. One of the great things about HP's SAM module is it comes with flexible out-of-the-box software counters that can monitor software usage and trigger alerts to manage your compliance proactively before you are audited. Not to mention standard reports to help you make smarter purchasing or contract negotiation decisions. I can tell you a number of times in instances of other projects where they would take an out-of-the-box configuration that only triggers the alert once you actually go over your allotted licenses for a given software product. I tell customers all the time implementing this particular module, you need to customize that. You need to set up a threshold. For example, if you get within 90%, if you're utilizing 90% of the licenses you're allotted that you've already paid for, that's actually the point where you should be getting notifications. For whatever reason, this software is being used a lot in our environment. It's hit the 90% threshold. Let's go run our own internal audit to see what's going on, what's causing the spike in usage of that particular license, and then make the decision, do we need to actually purchase more licenses, or do we need to control who's installing and using this software? Instant, complete turnaround on return on investment right there. Why spend the money for it when you already got some software licenses available to use or can be reused? We'll discuss that right now.
Hey, Laurent.
All about, yes.
Laurent, sorry, back at the software asset management, the chart that you had up, the chart that you have up, can you speak to at a high level what kind of work effort is involved in terms of being able to see this across key software licenses in your environment?
This does require a lot of interdepartmental communication. The contracts people have to sit down with the IT folks who do the actual software inventories. The contracts people are necessary because that's your source for what license data you have bought, what the numbers of licenses are for various software products that are in the environment. What I do as the consultant implementing this is I take that data from the contracts team and import that, set it up appropriately in the SAM module, so the software counters can know what they're measuring the discovered software against. For example, if you have licenses for 1,000 installs of product X, that comes from the contracts folks, that information, but your discovery tool is discovering 2,000 active instances. A simple example is 2,000 instances of this software installed in the environment on servers, computers, etc., have actively been used in the last 3 months. All of that can be measured against the 1,000 that you paid for, and you can see right there, you paid for 1,000, but you're actually using 2,000 instances of the software, and per the contract, that's not what you're entitled to. Automatically, you're out of compliance in that example. What this module can do is help you prevent situations like that. Like I said, proactive compliance monitoring of your system. But it requires, at minimum, those two groups to get together for a given organization. Your contracts people who know what software you bought, and your IT people who should have the discovery tools out there to tell you what software is actually installed and being used on a given machine or virtual instance for that matter. Very good question. All right, let's continue on with that return on investment benefits conversation. I think between the portfolio discussion, the contracts discussion, and the software asset management modules discussion, you can see how a lot of these benefits are actually out there, and they're yours for the taking, with just a little effort and focus on key objectives. The portfolio management module in and of itself, for example, when tied to existing data sources and some standardized processes, has an almost immediate turnaround in terms of benefits and cost savings. I want you to look at the graphic there on the right. That's a graphic from a recent industry survey. And if you just look at some of the details there, you can see nearly 80% of all the respondents in this recent survey reduced software costs by identifying under or over licensed software. Another group, more than 50% actually, reported decreased operating costs by fewer assets being lost. I mean, that's a given. If you're not losing stuff you've already bought, obviously you're not going to be spending more money to replace those. Another group, more than 50%, reduced maintenance costs by identifying assets no longer in use. That goes parallel to the example we just gave for the contracts module discussion. Many other return on investment opportunities exist with very simple math driving them. The software example I just gave you, for example, that's very simple math. It's not rocket science. The example on the right is another one of those simple math examples. In this example, you can see where we have software no longer being used, or incorrect software licenses are actually being installed. You can save costs by uninstalling the unused software and or replacing the correct version software. Again, you need, as I said in the previous example, those two sides of your house, of the company, to come together to have the information foundation there to make determinations. We bought this much, we're actually using this much. We have enough information to obviously make a decision here to save money and reduce costs, and very importantly, not get audited. That's the main thing you want to avoid, is not getting audited, especially for software. Also, in line with that same example, why buy more of one software license when you have several licenses that you aren't even being used? Again, these are simple return on investment approaches with very simple structures to them, very simple math to them. For a customer where they were actually audited, they were audited right before I was brought on to implement SAM for them for HP Asset Manager. They obviously didn't want to go through another audit situation again, and they had to control all the money they were spending month over month for software licenses. Theirs was an interesting situation where they've already had the audit, so everyone was up in arms on, okay, what can we do for the next quarter to make sure this doesn't happen again? In their situation, they had two different purchasing houses. It was like one side of the company could buy whatever they want. There were no real processes or rules around it, particularly in terms of software, whereas the other side of the house had a little bit more standardization to who can request orders for software, who can procure equipment, etc. The solution I came up with them for the software asset management module is, what if I put in a wizard for you so that when you submitted a request to buy software licenses, regardless of the product, you could see what software licenses actually were available, i.e. not already being utilized, being used on an instance out there in the environment. And that way you can know from the point of a request whether you actually had to buy a new license or just simply request using a license that hasn't already been utilized. That addition to their system, the out-of-the-box functionality of the system, was like, oh, that's exactly what we need. That's perfect. That'll let us know up front before the paperwork goes any further whether we can use what we already have or we actually need to invest money to buy more. They ended up buying less software ultimately by the time the project was concluded. This is over the course of 9 months, and utilizing more software that they already had in-house and saved money. That project was 3 years back, and to my knowledge, to date, they have not been audited since. So there's a great example for you right there of how you can leverage all the data that you already have, all the tools that you already have, to make your system, your IT asset management system, as effective as possible. That's the ultimate goal. Very good question, Newt. Thank you. So those are all of the asset management modules you can take into consideration for leveraging your existing system or making better use of all your existing asset data. Some other things that can come into play for leveraging what you may already have in your environment is training, and that's what we're going to discuss next. Excuse me one moment. And I'm back. Just had to grab a glass of water. Okay. Beyond implementing improvements to your existing IT asset management system, or as I said, better utilizing the asset data you do have on hand, Configure Consulting also offers formal training in many HP IT asset management core applications or products, as you see here. We provide all the materials for each class, including training outlines, handouts, and lab exercises. The classes can be conducted in a traditional on-site classroom setting or via the web, customer's choice and for that point. All the classes are supported on our own cloud-based training servers, already configured with the training materials for the class in question. And we currently offer the 4 courses you see here, including Asset Manager, Connected, DDMI, and the fairly recent Universal Discovery. Each of the classes are conducted by one of our experienced consultants or consultants from on site to get your staff and team up to spec. Okay, now that we've talked about the various modules that are out there and the training, after having some of these conversations and some of these cited examples, you may want to actually dig a little bit deeper. Well, we have prepared for that. Anyone can submit a request for product demonstrations. If you desire a deep dive review of any HP Asset Manager module or other products, such as Connected or DDMI, please contact us at your earliest convenience. We'd be happy to arrange and schedule a demonstration for you. Each demo, again, will be conducted by an experienced consultant and salesperson to answer all of your questions. Now, here's what do I get out of this webinar, part of the discussion. If you are not sure where to start leveraging your existing asset data or your existing ITAM system, Configure does offer several recommendations. And for new customers or those new to ITAM in general, option 1 is probably what may be best for you. Option 1 includes a quick start implementation of the portfolio module. That includes basic lifecycle asset and organizational data integration. Very good example of that is, what am I going to get out of option 1? Out of option 1, you're going to know where your assets are, who's using them, where they're physically located, and what their current statuses are. All of that through option 1 in a very short time frame, 3 months or less. That's our definition of a short time frame. Now, for those of you who have an established ITAM system but aren't really sure where to start with considering, what can we leverage, Option 2 provides an assessment and recommendation where we evaluate all of your existing data, all of your existing tools. We review the current status and state of your existing ITAM system and then give you a comprehensive report on what alternatives you have to leverage other parts of your ITAM system to, again, make it move in that maturity model from, say, a very low maturity model to a medium managed level or even a more agile level. The ultimate goal is to get to the top of that arc. This, again, option 2, can be conducted in a short time frame, again, around the 3-month point. And of course, that depends on the size of your existing implementation, things like that. But in general, short time frame. Finally here, option 3 is more for more savvy customers who know what they want. We want to implement specific modules, 2, 3 other modules. We have some special requirements, so we could also provide for customization in option 3. And unlike the other 2 options, option 3 also includes training and support for the new modules that are implemented. And that goes along with making sure your staff understands the processes and procedures involved, how to maintain those modules moving forward, and even other improvements that can be made over time once the new modules are in place. Option 3 is conducted naturally over a longer time frame, a medium to long time frame. This is beyond the 3-month point. This could be 6 months or more for option 3. And finally, I lost my screen there. Hold on. All right, there at the end there. Just wanted to say thank you again for attending this webinar today. We do hope you found it informative and engaging. And if you have any questions or concerns, we'd be happy to discuss those right now. Otherwise, please reach out to our sales and business development contact, Ms. Anu Rao. Thank you for your time. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Anu, and we'll begin our question and answer session.